energy Roland Blanchard has is just so fun and so unpredictable. Nobody knows what she's going to do from one minute to the next. She has this switch that if you flip the switch at any given moment, she can just deal with some of the more difficult circumstances, and that just shows how talented she is and how she can really go the distance for Disney. And here's the thing about Roland Blanchard, guys. You can easily get 6 seasons out of Roland Blanchard when you're talking about Girl Meets World and prolonging this series, which is really what you're going to have to do, especially with Boy Meets World having 7 seasons. That's what's expected for Girl Meets World to get, are 7 seasons, 6 through 7. I would be satisfied if we even had 6 seasons of Girl Meets World. That would get it past the success of Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place, without a doubt, which was really unprecedented, and I think that this series can get it past that because of just how much can be done with this series, because we still have a lot of unanswered questions about the futures of these characters, and these series definitely are too short. They're just here 1 minute and gone the next. And with series like Austin and Ally and Liv and Maddie getting ready to end, Austin and Ally just saw their series finale a couple of weeks ago. I think it's not even 3 weeks since Austin and Ally had their series finale, which was an hour long. It was so emotional. This is an opportunistic time for Girl Meets World and the cast to take advantage of this, because this is where Roland Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter can really show us what they are capable of doing. And they've already shown us a lot, but I think there's even more to be shown, and there's even more to be talking about when you're talking about your favorite Disney Channel stars. Without a doubt, you have to include Roland Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter on top of that list for the chemistry and just how they are able to create. And that's the thing about this series. That's the thing Michael Jacobs really needs to understand as the executive producer of Girl Meets World. There are so many opportunities with this series that you have to create something special. And I think that because you have so many opportunities to create something special with this series, you really have to take advantage of it, because there are so many fans out there that are expecting the highest of potential to be realized with Girl Meets World. I know I am one of those people who think that Girl Meets World is a series that you can do a lot with. It's just they have to realize it themselves that this series is something you can do a lot with. There are a lot of cast members from Boy Meets World that we see all the time on this series. There are more that I would like to see making appearances on this show. Like, remember Corey's sister? What happened to her anyway? 1 minute she was a part of Boy Meets World, the next minute she was gone. Nothing was ever done with her character. She made no guest appearances on any shows after Boy Meets World, and she seems to be the one character that we are all waiting on. We're waiting on her to make an appearance on this show, even if it is only for 5 minutes, but she was a character that you could do so much with. And it's beyond me why, if they didn't bring anybody back for that series, if they were going to bring anybody back for that series, that you would have expected it to have been her, because she could have really fit in to this new generation of Disney Channel stars and just what Disney's been representing for the last number of years, for the part of the last 10 years. She's someone who could have had great chemistry with the likes of Roland Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter, who obviously the focus are on. Sabrina Carpenter brings the music to life in a way that I don't think anyone else could have done. I mean, if you would have gave, say, Laura Morano the role of Maya on the show, I think that what we would have seen on that series is probably not the portrayal of Maya's character as good as what Sabrina Carpenter does it, because I think Sabrina Carpenter plays that character better than anybody. And obviously Disney knew what they were doing when they were casting Girl Meets World, and they were trying to determine what the roles were going to be and who were going to play the roles for the show, like Austin and Ally. So they did a great job with trying to cast these cast members, and I think the qualities that these cast members have gone unnoticed for far too long. But the popularity of these celebrities are becoming more noticeable over time, because we're getting more millions of fans subscribing to the Girl Meets World fan page on Facebook. We're getting millions of followers on Twitter, and that's really what counts at the end of the day, how much attention a series is getting. Without a doubt, it is emphatically number one. And it's number one because of you guys and all the support you have given the series, and the endless amount of support coming from you. And the response to this series is really what's gotten this series over, and will continue to get this series over for Disney for a very long time. If you haven't already figured it out, really big fans of Roland Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter, and I think that I will be a fan of them for a very long time. I'll be putting them over until they get the recognition that I feel they deserve, because like I said here earlier, I think they're just merely scratching the surface of everything they have yet to become, and that's what's really exciting to be a fan of Disney. If there ever was a time to be a fan of Disney, the time is now, and I've been really, forcing this issue because I think it's an issue that deserves to be forced, especially when you have a talent like Roland Blanchard, who never, in my opinion, gets enough credit. Yes, people are promoting Roland Blanchard and talking about her all the time, But how many people are putting her over in the way of, someone who has a lot of success? There are a lot of people doing it, but I think the numbers of people who are criticizing people like Rowan and Sabrina are definitely outnumbering the people who are fans of hers, and I think that there's no need of that. I think what we need to see are more supporters than we do haters out there of this series, because there were a lot of people when this series first premiered that said this series was not going to last. There was no way the series was going to survive. And I think that, with the critics out there, more and more people, with probably the 4 or 5 critics we instantly saw with that series, more and more people found time in criticizing it, which really there was no need to see. I think what we need to see are more supporters of this series to definitely indicate a more promising future, which this series can have. I think that, the chemistry that we see between Rowan Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter is something that needs to be examined more. I wish they would do a documentary on Girl Meets World. Hopefully they'll do somewhat of a behind-the-scenes look at what really goes into producing this series, because there is a lot of work the series has to go into it that it's never given enough credit for, and just how hard it is to put together a series like this. I mean, you're on set probably between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're there all day filming, 2 to 3 episodes for a season. And I think that, with all the work that goes into it and how much chemistry that we need to see from Rowan Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter, who probably don't even like each other, in real life. I know that Miley Cyrus and Emily Osment had a very difficult time getting along on set, and the producers of the series told them they had to pull it together, and it wasn't until season 3 and the filming of the movie they were able to do it. And who's to say the same thing doesn't apply? The same kind of logic doesn't apply to Sabrina Carpenter and Rowan Blanchard, because in my opinion, Sabrina Carpenter is someone who is very opinionated. Sabrina Carpenter is somebody who likes to march to the beat of her own drum, probably more than what Rowan does, and it's probably reversed. Maybe Rowan thinks a lot of herself and thinks the focus should be on her, which obviously a lot of it is. But there seems to be just as much, if not more, on Sabrina Carpenter, who is making this series a huge success, which is something that is very noticeable. And I know I told you here earlier how Sabrina Carpenter was the first one that caught my attention, the first one that I fell in love with from that series. It wasn't her over a Rowan Blanchard. So there has to be some kind of animosity that exists between these characters. You would expect to see that. But even if there is, the chemistry is just amazing, and it's one of the contributing factors as to why this series is over and why it is receiving raving reviews. The popularity of Rowan Blanchard is something that really gets my attention all the time. And I say that because Rowan Blanchard's popularity definitely skyrocketed ever before a Dove Cameron's popularity or Olivia Holt's popularity skyrocketed to the heights of unprecedented. And that says a lot. I fell in love, yes, instantly with the Dove Cameron and Olivia Holt, and I almost instantly started giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I probably should have been doing that with Sabrina Carpenter and Rowan Blanchard. So I want to take a couple of minutes to apologize to a lot of people who listen to my video blogs who probably wonder why I never really hardly talk about Sabrina Carpenter or Rowan Blanchard. I know a lot of people have brought that up to me. It's just I was always a fan of a Dove Cameron and Olivia Holt for some reason. Maybe it was because their looks were appealing to me, maybe because their talent was talent that, you just couldn't go without noticing, and I just kept putting them over and putting them over and putting them over. Here's the thing, in 2004, if you go back that far, if you throw yourself back to that generation, all we really had to talk about that Disney was thriving off of was the success of Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place. Again, I say that that show is one of the best I've seen since Wizards of Waverly Place and Alex Russo's character played by Selena Gomez. You guessed it. That's really all we had for Disney. Now in 2016, what we have are all these shows: Bunked, Jessie, Austin and Ally, Dog with a Blog, Girl Meets World, Liv and Maddie, so many. There is a huge list of Disney Channel shows. There's not 1 or 2 shows, and Shake It Up, which is the follow-up to Hannah Montana, which went nowhere. I think 3-4 seasons is what that series got, and there's a big difference between Shake It Up and Girl Meets World. If you haven't already figured it out, seeing 6-7 seasons for this one, definitely a prolonged series that you can get the gist out of, if you feel my drift. And the thing is, with something like Shake It Up, it's just a series that's put in place. We had Bella Thorne, who obviously was the next Miley Cyrus. That didn't follow through with. That was a prediction. A Nostradamus piece of crap prediction that was made by Disney that didn't really follow through with. And Girl Meets World is definitely picking up a lot of slack with, things that Disney tried to do, make something out of, but were unable to do it. They thought Bridget Miller may have been the answer to Miley. They thought maybe Bella Thorne may have been the answer to Miley, and we all know what happened there with Bella Thorne and Bridget Miller. They all became train wrecks, probably worse than what Miley ever did, and probably quicker than what Miley did. But we had so many of these stars growing up so quickly, and because they learned so much from all the shows like Good Luck Charlie and Shake It Up, that's why they're in the predicaments and situations, circumstances they are faced with now. I am hoping that Sabrina Carpenter and Rowan Blanchard have promising futures. There's no doubt about that, because if we see Sabrina Carpenter and Rowan Blanchard, especially even Rowan Blanchard, head down a precarious road where there's really no uncertainty with, there's really a lot of uncertainty with what's going to be next for her off of Disney. I'm hoping that she keeps that same kind of image and positive kind of role for herself when she does stuff outside of Disney, because she is someone who you have an endless opportunity to create with. The magic of creating something with Rowan Blanchard is something to be noticed and something that's worth talking about, because if there ever was a time to be a fan of Disney and there ever was a time to be excited for somebody, that person to be excited for, and if there ever was a time to be a fan of Disney, is now, and is Rowan Blanchard. It's very easy to answer some of the questions. While it's very easy, too, in the same regard, to answer a lot of these questions, it's very difficult to answer just as many, because we don't know what the futures have in store for these celebrities when you're talking about Rowan Blanchard and Sabrina Carpenter, or even more so Sabrina Carpenter, because Sabrina Carpenter is just somebody who is so talented with music and just acting. She's someone who could be in movies 3 or 4 years from now and say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of Girl Meets World anymore, and then she just exits the series and leaves it up to Ben Savage, Daniel Fisher, and Rowan Blanchard to pick up the slack. That could happen too. She could pull an Ariana Grande and say, you know what, Sam and Cat's not what I want to be doing. I want to be focusing on music. I can't get along with Jeanette McCurdy. Maybe she could say the same thing about Rowan Blanchard. I just can't see eye to eye with Rowan Blanchard, and I'm thinking about working on an album. My producers have more for me to do in the future, so goodbye to Girl Meets World. That could happen. But with how popular this series is, I think that would be the wrong move for that series to make, because this series is emphatically number one. It's on top of the list. It's definitely ahead of a show like Liv and Maddie, which is another one getting ready to end. It wouldn't surprise me if by the midway point of 2016, which will bring us up to June, if Liv and Maddie announced its series finale, because of the age of Dove Cameron, how she's done so much quicker than a lot of Disney Channel stars of this generation. So there's a lot to be taken into consideration about the futures of people like Dove Cameron and even Olivia Holt. I didn't do it in their second or third season now, so that could be a series that could be ending very soon too. And I think that these series are never around long enough. You know, it just seems like when you're getting used to a series, it vanishes. It announces its series finale, and that's it. You know, it doesn't seem like 3 or 4 years is a long time, but just think about that from the perspective of someone 10 years old. 3 or 4 years seems like an eternity. For someone 29 going on 30 this May, 2 or 3 years just seems like a blemish. And then it's gone. You know, one explosion for a series, and then that's it. Once it blows up once, it goes bye-bye. And I think that we need to see series